Hello gorgeous people, so good to see you today. I hope you're all thriving on this beautiful Sunday. I'm still keeping it a little bit light today, but I wanted to expand upon something that I have brought up in previous videos quite a bit, and I'm wondering if you can guess what that is. Yes, it's journaling. So I have mentioned journaling in quite a few videos now, and you have probably seen this book in the last 2 or 3 videos of mine, at least 2 of them. This is my journal for 2020. So today I wanted to talk to you a little bit about why I think journaling is a really good daily habit to have, and some tips to get started with daily journaling for those of you who don't know where to start. So I think that it's important, before we seek to build habits into our lives, that we understand why we are building those habits. I think that is the first thing we should do before we even begin to change our daily schedules, our daily routines and our mindset, is to understand the why. People are naturally inquisitive, and people are more likely to commit to something if they understand why they're doing it and why it's beneficial to them and why it needs to or should be done. So with that being said, I am going to tell you some of my reasons why I have built journaling into my daily routines. So first things first, I feel that journaling for me is a really great tool for manifestation. I often write down my goals, my dreams, my fears in my journal, and I have been able to kind of use my journal as a tool for visualizing what it is that I want to achieve, and being able to look back on that, review it, and also center myself, re-center myself when I lose my way, because I've written it down somewhere that I see every day, is very, very useful to me. Before I moved to Korea, I remember that, you know, the first time I had said that was my goal, that was my dream, it sounded very, very far-fetched. I had literally come back from vacation and I decided that within the next 9 months I wanted to be packed up and headed to another continent. It was totally understandable why some people were a little bit dubious about the possibility of being able to do so, and some people were a bit more cautious of trying to make me a little bit more grounded with my goals. My goals seemed really unrealistic, and I remember at the time I sat down and I wrote in my journal just kind of like a passage of what I visualized my life to be like, and I always referred back to that passage whenever that little voice in my head told me that my dream wasn't realistic. And it's not that I doubted I would do what I wanted to do, but because I was so clear and stubborn and precise about how I wanted to achieve it, when I wanted to achieve it, it definitely at some points felt like, is this realistic? Is 9 months enough to, you know, go out, get a new qualification, secure a job, secure an apartment, pack up, move? Like, that didn't sound realistic at all, but I was able to do so, and I do credit the fact that I used my journal as a way to center myself on what I wanted and what I believed I was capable of, so that when doubt came into play or naysayers came into play, I was able to look back on that. And that kind of leads me into my second point. Journaling is a really good tool for evaluation. I make it a habit to sit down and read my journal every 90 days at least, because it really helps me see where I've come from. I think that we can be so focused on the idea of future self I want to be this person, I want to be this person, I want to be better in these ways. And I think that's really good. I'm always striving to be better, to be more knowledgeable, to be kinder, to be more generous. But sometimes it's really nice to look back on who I was last year, 6 months ago, 3 months ago, and actually acknowledge the progress that I've made. I think that's really, really important. There is a saying that says, you don't know where you're going if you don't know where you've been. And I think that's so, so true. So easy to get lost in just constant goal achieving, goal attaining, and really forget to sit down and say, wow, the Rashida of 2017 is such a different person to Sheeda of 2020. And I was actually looking back on my journal from January and thinking, wow, I've actually grown so much in 5 months. That's nuts. That's amazing. That's really cool. There were things that I wanted to do in January that I've achieved and I forgot to check them off. That's amazing. That's such a great feeling, and it gives you encouragement, and it also helps you to identify certain patterns. So I have a video coming up about this, about one of the really, really difficult areas of my life. It's a very raw video coming up very soon, and I use journaling to identify certain negative habits and traits in my life, and I have been implementing systems to help break those negative toxic cycles, and journaling was the key to me identifying what those were, because the patterns kept showing up throughout the journal. So that was really useful. So I think that journaling is really good for kind of holding ourselves to account, but also giving ourselves cookies every now and then, because I think we don't give ourselves enough praise. I think sometimes it's really good to look back and say, I did that, and yes, I still have this to achieve, but look how far I've come already. Okay, so those are my reasons. Those are some of the ideas behind daily journaling, but I wanted to share with you some tips about journaling. So for those of you who are interested but are a little overwhelmed, welcome. Have a seat, grab a cup of tea. So the first thing I would say is important before you even get started is choosing your actual journal. Now, I've always chosen to use a physical notebook or a physical book. You can buy any type of journal you want. It can be a simple notebook, it can be an actual diary from a stationery store. You can go on Amazon and find bullet journals or leather bound journals. I've always preferred not to use journals that come structured, like planners or bullet journals, because I like to write 3-thought and 3-style. But if you are somebody who feels like they would be in need of promptings, there's loads of different kinds of journals you can buy. You can buy bullet journals, which are often sectioned out into lined, dotted, month, days, and things like that, and that gives you a really good structure. You could buy a manifestation journal, which gives you prompts every day. Amazon has some really, really good guided journals, and I will link some of my favorites down below, but in general, I really like using these. When I have recommended journaling to my friends, I have sent them journals that are a lot more structured, but I have been journaling for many, many years and have found myself to be more comfortable with just using a kind of notebook style journal, and it can be pretty, it can be plain, it can be lined. That is down to choosing the best journal for you. When you go searching for a journal, take your time, don't rush, look into the different types of journals that they are and find one that suits you. And that also includes finding one that's going to be comfortable to write in. Now, if you do choose a physical journal, that's going to be important. Does it fit with your lifestyle? This fits in all of my handbags. If there is a handbag that does not fit my journal, it is not the handbag for me. Facts. But these are things to consider. Is this comfortable for you to write in? Are you someone who likes to bend your book all the way around? I can't do that with my journal because it's hardback. So maybe you would want a soft spine or a spiral. You need to decide what's going to be comfortable for you. So tip number 2, and this is something I actually wish someone had told me before I started the practice of daily journaling, and that is to write less. When you first begin, write less. I know that there's a lot of different views on this out there. I guess some people are like, just let your streams of consciousness flow, and I think that can be quite stressful actually. I think that can feel like a lot of pressure. Write everything that's on your heart. That's not realistic when you first start journaling. I think it's a lot more useful to write less but more consistently in the beginning and build up your comfort level with writing every day. I personally, when I first started journaling, I felt like it was a really intimate task. Bearing in mind I started journaling in my early 20s, and I had come out of a very traumatic situation, and it was recommended to me by a therapist, and it felt like I was pouring out some really, really vulnerable parts of me, some really secret parts of me, to a book. And that was difficult, and I think it's okay to admit that that can be difficult. Had I really understood the purpose of journaling, daily journaling, I would have started small. I wouldn't start with my deep, dark childhood traumas. I would have just started with, how's my mood today, what I ate, how I feel now, one thing I'm grateful for, and move on. And that's why I say that when I recommend journaling to my friends, I send them journals that are pre-structured a little bit, at least for the first year, because it helps them get comfortable with writing, and it also helps them build the habit. I think building the habit first is a lot more important than what you write. Now that doesn't mean scribble gibberish for the first 90 days, but I think that if you can get through the first 3 months having consistently journaled, even if it's just half a page, then that is a great way to start. How much I write and what I write varies from day to day. It's important to know that that is absolutely okay. And that leads me to my 3rd tip. Journaling is for you. Do not go out of your way to be extremely performative with your journal. It's not supposed to be for anybody else but you. Nobody else is supposed to read your journal. In fact, this is what the front page of my journal says. Hello, my name is Sheeda and this is my journal. If you find my journal, please don't read it, although I doubt you'll find much of interest even if you do. Please reach out to me via my emails. I'd really appreciate it. And I've left my emails there. Just in case I ever lose my journal or misplace it somewhere. I take this to a lot of places with me, so you know, I actually have never left this behind, but just in case. And it's the truth, I write for nobody's performance. It's not interesting at all, but it's not supposed to be. It's not a novel, it's not a fantasy fiction, it's a journal, and I don't make it look pretty all the time. Sometimes my handwriting is honestly rubbish, and I don't use loads of synonyms if I don't feel like it. I don't jazz anything up. It doesn't have to be for anyone but me. Now if you like glitter and pink and using poetry and synonyms and writing in prose for yourself, go ahead. But writing a journal as if it's for anyone else other than yourself is going to completely negate the purpose of making this a daily habit. So Just remember, it is not for anyone else but you. So you don't need to do anything special unless you particularly want to, which is fine because it's for you. Okay, so anyway, a practical tip to make journaling become a easy, comfortable daily habit for you is to set a tone. So some people wake up first thing in the morning and they journal. For example, Josh Waitzkin, the author of The Art of Learning, wakes up immediately and writes in his journal for 30 minutes. His reason for doing this is because when he's asleep, he feels that his subconscious has been doing a lot of learning, growing, problem solving, and just being overall creative. And the first thing he wants to do before all those thoughts slip away is get it down on the page. So he spends 30 minutes writing and he spends 30 minutes in his creative element. That's his flow. Create your flow. So for me, journaling for me is something to do with mood and not time of day. I set the mood. So usually it involves having some sort of hot drink or a tea or a latte, a nice pen, a quiet vibe, and when I'm feeling most centered. Now, sometimes that could be because I've set out for the day to go to my favorite coffee shop or my favorite store or my favorite bakery or the library and do it there. But sometimes that's just in my house and I have to get myself into that mood. So I meditate first, I use my humidifier with some essential oil to create an atmosphere. I relax, I may stretch. Just create a flow. Create a flow that one, promotes a comfortable environment for you, and two, once you get into the habit of creating that flow, your mind is ready for journaling. When I switch on my humidifier and I put my almond oil in there or my eucalyptus oil in there or my tea tree oil in there, I honestly, it's almost like Pavlova's dogs, where I'm like, it's journaling time, and where's my pen? I get into that habit because these things have become linked. When I do 5-minute meditation where I just close my eyes and sit in the stillness, that opens my mind starts flowing more freely because I'm used to doing that when I need to sit down and write. So create your own flow, create a comfortable environment, and make sure that you stick to it. Okay guys, so I've got 2 more tips for you today. Two more. So my next tip, it's a very simple, practical one. Make sure you date your entries. Even if you only write 1 sentence on that day, make sure you date it. That is because when you're looking back at your journal every 90 days or so, as I recommended in the beginning, hope you were ready, hope you were listening, then you'll be able to actually know when you wrote what. It really is that simple. Please make sure you date your entries so that when you're doing your kind of like evaluating and looking back, and you actually have a track, or else it's gonna get really confusing. And try to write your journal in order. Like if you're like me and you just have a journal that's just plain white pages, no lines, no nothing, you can kind of get mumble jumbled. I have done it where I've like used half a page for one day and then used another half for another day, and it can get really confusing when you're trying to look back. So try not to do that. I know I just said I do it sometimes, but like I'm trying not to do that. It's not great. Try and keep your journal dated and in chronological order. That is definitely the most beneficial to you. And the last thing, the last thing, just start. That is my tip for you. Just start. Just get started. And if you don't know where to start, then just start with, today I feel. It's really that simple. Today I ate. Today I feel. Today I am. And go from there. It gets easier with time. And I guarantee you, this is one of the best habits I have ever implemented into my life. And I will never ever go back. Never ever ever go back. So I hope that these tips helped. Please let me know if you are, you know, a journaling newbie, or if you are a journaling pro. Let me know your tips down below. Let me know if you found any of these super useful, and I look forward to seeing you guys again next week. Have a great week, guys. Bye.